So let's do the second part. I think that the first part is pretty simple. I will record more faster later, but it's quite simple. This second part that is related to how to use Substance Designer to create the atlas, it's just a little more complex. So let's start on that. So from the previous video, we have been creating this um, library using some sampler, where we download assets from the Substance website, and then we export the textures from sampler. So now we have the textures. Let's import those textures into Substance Designer. So that process we should open Designer. We shall create a new Substance graph. We shall choose the metallic rawness workflow. We can set here the resolution. I will keep it on 1K. And let's rename that as my atlas. Row 1. We will create multiple. We don't need to change anything more, just that. Okay. So this creates this unsaved package that should be our editable file. And here we have our graphs. We can have multiple graphs inside the package. It's similar of sampler where we have multiple materials inside the same file, same concept. So here we can save that as my my atlas project. Okay, now the file is called my atlas project, and we have our first graph that is called my atlas 01. So let's open this one. Here you can see it. So first of all, we should change some settings here on the material, because Substance Designer comes by default to work with DirectX normals for Unreal Engine. So we should change that. It's pretty simple. You can go to Materials, Default, Adobe. You select that one, and here on the Properties tab, we can see a bunch of properties. The only one we want to change is the normals, this one, where it says DirectX normal. We should change that from true to false, so it's using OpenGL. Okay, that's all we need to change. So now here on the tree viewport, we can see the normals correctly and not like flipped. The next step should be import those textures, right? So as we export 3 different materials, we want to make like a atlas that contains these 3 materials together. So let's start with the chrome. You can just put the window here, and it's just drag and drop here into the graph. And here is very important. We should link the resource instead of import, because if we import, it will make a copy of this original file and we store inside here. So link will just connect this texture file to this graph. So later, if you want to update this texture in Substance Sampler, if you want to change the color or add, the chrome, add more corrosion, oxidation to the chrome, we can update it there. Just re-export the textures, and the textures will be automatically updated here.
Oh, great.
Without changing anything.
Great.
Okay. So we just link the texture and repeat the process for all the textures. Link, link, and link. Now let's see which texture is what. So this one is base color. So we can look here. Oh, we can, as we are not creating a main occlusion or height map, these two nodes comes by default on the metallic roughness workflow graph, but we don't use it, so we can just remove it. And we can remove these two sample stuff. So this is the base color, the metallic, the normal map, and the roughness. Right? So here we have again our Chrome. Let's see the environment. So go environment edit. And where it says displace component is visible false, we change to true. So now we can see how, have a better reference of how the material looks like in a real scenario. Right? So we have our Chrome here. This is just the first material, right? We want to combine them together. So let's see how we can do that. So let's move to the next one, the fabric pattern. Repeat the process. Just link them here in the same graph. A base color, normal, roughness, and metallic. And disconnect that. And repeat for the last one. One, roughness, metallic. Okay, so now we have our three different texture sets here. Let's see how we can combine them together. So the process will be really simple. It's just involving 2 or 3 nodes. So 2 or 3 different nodes. So let's see which one are. Basically, first we need to blend the materials together. So for that we should use material blend. This one, you can press spacebar here on the graph and search for material. It will display all the materials nodes we have available. We want to use the material blend. That says on the description, blends two full materials together using a color or a grayscale mask. Okay. So this very massive node is actually quite simple. So let's click on them, on it, and on the properties here. Okay, here on the instance property, we can see the channels we want to use, right? So there is a bunch that are enabled that we don't want. For example, diffuse, we don't want that. Base color, we want. Normal, we want. Specular, we don't. Emissive, in this case, not. Glossiness, not. Roughness, yes. Metallic, yes. Specular, no. Height, no. Okay? So now this thing is a little less monster. We only have 4 channels for each material. And the mask. So let's start plugging it. So basically, here it says the base color number 2.
You stop to share your screen.
Oh, let me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Let's try again.
Okay.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Get back.
Okay. So previously I say if you select the this material blend node, you can, in the channel section, you can enable or disable the channels you don't want, right? The channels are basically the textures. So here I just keep base color, normal, roughness, and metallic. Okay?
Okay.
So now we shall connect these to the inputs, right? Because we want to blend two materials. One is this section, the second is this section, and then we have the mask. So let's start to connect them. So base color goes to base color, normal to normal, rawness to rawness. Be careful to connect them correctly. Don't, connect metallic on rawness or rawness on metallic or things like that. It will mess up your results, obviously. So let's move to the next one. Base color. This node only allow us to blend two materials. So we should do the step 2 times, right? First time is combining this first material with this second one, and then we will have another node exactly like that for combine the result of these two, right, with the third one.
Right.
So now if we see the preview here, we will not see anything, or we will see, actually we are seeing the chrome, this one, right? So if I click the output here, and double click the output, I can pre-visualize on the 2D view. So this texture corresponds to the chrome texture, but we don't have the second, that is this fabric carpet thing, right? It's not visible, and that is because this material blend node need a mask, a grayscale mask that says where the second material will be blended, how we split, right, the final texture. So in order to do that, we shall create a mask, a grayscale mask. So for do that, what I usually do, you can do it different ways. It's up to you. But the way I do it right here inside the substance is I create a shape, right? This one, shape, basically like a form. You can select square, disc, bell, whatever. I just select the square, and then I make the scale of the square like the half size of the texture. This way, for example. So let's see, I will change the scale right here. So I put 5, it's like half. And then I wanna move this mask, because if I plug this mask right now, right here, I will have like the chrome on the middle, and then I will have, right, the carpet on the sides. That is not correct. I will have like half and half, right? So in order to do that, I need to move this white shape to the left or to the right. So the last element we should use, the last node we should use here is the transform 2D. This one allows us to move the texture, scale, rotate. Okay. So we can connect our shape here, and then connect the output here. And here I have the controls to move this thing around, even rotate them, right? Pretty useful. But what's happened if I want to move this to the left? If I move too far, it will start to repeat this side, on this side, and I don't want that. So in order to fix that, we should change the tiling option for the texture for this node. It's right here, tiling mode. We can click on this icon here, and we can put absolute. Okay, and here we change the tiling to no tiling. Okay, so it will not repeat. So if I move this far, it will not appear this side, even on top. It will not repeat on any form. Okay, so now we don't have tiling. I can move this element to the left. So let's move it. Let's move the offset. We'll go exactly 0.25. So it's exactly dividing the thing at the middle, right? So now if we see the output here, we have the left side is the carpet and the right side is the chromium. So our first material blending, our first part of the atlas is done. So basically now we shall repeat the process. So let's copy and paste this node one more time. Let's disconnect all this stuff and connect now in the material. And the top one, we connect the one we already have right there, right? And on the bottom, we connect the last material we have on the list, this one, the Pinocchio wood, right? Here and here. And here again what will happen is we don't have the material blended, the last one. It's because we are missing the grayscale mask. So we shall create one more for that. So in order to create that, I can repeat this same node, copy those again. But now, instead of making this, I can just change the transform if I want. I can just rotate it, right, 90 degrees. So here I have the rotation, and I have some presets like 90 degrees, like that. So now it's on the split it on the middle again. So if I plug this here, now I have the wood on the top and the carpet and the chromium on the bottom. If I wanna play a little more with that, I can make this smaller or bigger, right? And it will change the result. So I have more area available for the other textures versus the wood. So you can adjust this mask as you want. If you feel it's more easy for you to create those masks like in Photoshop or any 2D software you use, you can make it because it's just grayscale mask.
It's a black
right?
white.
Yeah, it's like a black and white stuff, so it's pretty simple. So you can have full control of how they blend it. So let's see the last step I want to show you. Let's connect this to the output so we can see it in real time here on the 3D viewport. Right? So we have all the PVR properties preserved, normals and everything, not just the base color. So that is pretty nice. The last thing I want to show you is what's happening if I want to increase the tiling of these textures individually to make them more repeated or less repeated for each one. So it's pretty simple. What we can do is we can create a new transform 2D node, right? And we connect those to the from the original texture we want to edit to the transform, and then from the transform to the input of the material blend. Let's do it with some other texture because Chrome is not a good example. It's very flat. Let's do with the pattern of the cloth, the fabric pattern. So let's add a transform 2D. And if you select this line, yes, and you press space and you add a node, it will automatically connect. So here, what we want to do is, if we want to increase the tiling, we can do here the stretch. We can do here per 2 or divide by 2. So if we divide, it will repeat more the pattern, as you can see here. Okay, and then I need to repeat the same process for all the other nodes. So I can copy this, but we have the exactly same values. Connect and reconnect. Copy, connect, reconnect, copy, need something. Connect this one to the grayscale color. Oh, I missed this one. This go here, and this goes here. There we go. So now the fabric pattern it's more repeated. This way we can have more control over that. The transform node allow us to do multiple types of transformations. We can just increase or decrease the tiling, but we can rotate them. We can stretch if we want. We can stretch the texture too, and all these kind of things. So it's very useful. So at the end we have our output nodes with the base color, normal, roughness, and metallic already atlased, right? We can save this file, right? I can save this. Okay, here we can see the list of the resources we are using. And here we can see the outputs we get from this process on the graph. So if we want to export that, we can just click on the graph, export outputs as bitmap. Here we can choose where we want to save it. Let's create a new folder called Atlas 01. The format we always goes with PNG, so .png. And the name of the textures will be automatically created, like my Atlas 01 base color. For the base color, for the normal should be normal, roughness, metallic. I suggest to use for the base color always sRGB format and the color space, and the rest just keep raw or just use linear. Okay, so let's export that. The export is very fast, it's already done, it's like less than 1 second. Okay, so now if I go here to my folder, I have my Atlas 01 folder, and then I have my Atlas textures here. And that is all the process we should do. If we want to control multiple Atlas, because one use case we can have is like I can have my materials project, right, in sampler, and here on the list, instead of have like 3 or 4 materials, I can have like 10 or 20 materials, right? But I don't want to put 20 materials together in one single texture, right? They will have so many low resolution, right? So low resolution because it's split too many times. So to avoid that, we want to create multiple Atlas textures. So in order to do that, we can create a new graph inside this project. Just go here, right click, new substance graph. Again, we select metallic roughness. We can put the name, should be my Atlas 02. You select the resolution, and then you have a new Atlas here.
This metallic roughness is just a template, right? So
it's just a template.
Okay.
Depending on the template you select, for example, if you select metallic roughness, it will automatically create these nodes, these outputs nodes, where it have height, ambient occlusion, metallic, and roughness.
Okay.
Right? If you select, I don't know, specular workflow, you instead of having roughness, you will have specular or metallic. Yeah.
Okay.
You probably have, instead of metallic, you will have specular, and instead of roughness, you will have smoothness. It's basically the upside.
Okay.
Yeah. So here in the same file, you can have multiple Atlas, right? And start to create your editable files. So in any case, like in future, you want to go to your sampler project, replace, the textures or edit whatever you want to edit on your materials, on your source materials. You can do it, save it, re-export it, and it will be automatically updated here because they are linked. And all this process through the nodes will be generated automatically. So you can just go here and export again, right?
Okay.
So changing things on the atlas should be really fast. Once you set up the way you want to split the atlas, the rest will be generated instantly.
I can copy all these nodes from my Atlas 1 to my Atlas 2.
Yes, exactly. You can do this. You can go here, copy the nodes. With Control, you can select these nodes.
Mhm.
Control C, you go to my Atlas 2. Control B,
Okay,
and there you are.
very simple.
And you just connect your stuff. Make sure remove any of those that you don't use, and you are ready to go. It's just that. So that is all the process I'm using now for generate my atlas textures. I have one example to show you. Been doing some for the BitNile client. Let's see what is it. Experiment materials. So I have this sandstone is my SSA. It's the sampler. In here I have multiple materials on my library. Actually, this one, for example, the sandstone, I spot the texture have so many very visible elements that makes the tealing very bad. So I fixed that inside the sampler without doing on Photoshop and any destructive, workflow. I just use the layers and I put some filters. I just put one filter actually. It's the clone stamp that is basically the same as Photoshop, but it doesn't destroy the texture. So here you can see how we have some patch here on the texture, some like dirt stuff, and through these stamps I've been removing these parts to make the texture more seamless when we filling them. Okay. Later, when I adjust all my materials here on the library, I export them, and I create this atlas. One. Okay, so now here I have two graphs, two atlas. The first one is very similar of what we have, what we are being doing for the example. It's just three together. And the second one is a little more complex, just because I'm blending more materials, and I'm creating some textures, PBR textures for one of these materials because they don't have. I just this palm tree leaf. The only thing I have is from the source is just this texture. So I've been doing some effects here, some nodes to generate my normal maps, generate my rawness map, and all this stuff to make the PBR. But it doesn't need to be generated inside this graph. It can be generated outside, right? Just put it together here for make my life easier. But basically it's the same. We have our textures, then we have our transform to adjust the transformation, and then we use the material blend nodes to blend them together, one on top of the other. So here I have, for example, just this first leaf, then I blend with the second leaf, and I get this 2 leaf, and then I blend with the palm, and then I blend with the ceramic, and then I blend with the this rock stone wall, and by the end I get this very nice material that have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 materials in just one.
Yeah, understanding the mask shapes, we can figure it out quite easily.
These ones, you mean?
Yeah. At first it looks so complex, but now seeing that they are based on masks, that became a little bit clear.
Yeah. It's just, this mask. Here we have the other mask for the other group. Here's for the ceramic.
Yeah.
And here's for the stone wall. And this is how we blend it.
Yeah. Great.
So yes, doing that basically for this project that we are doing with Edgar, these houses that are low poly and have low amount of charcoals, using this technique, we start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 9, 7, 8, 9, and 11, because we have 2 of these lists. So 11 materials, and we compress, like with the Atlas technique and all this stuff, we just finally get 3 materials. We get 1 for the Atlas 01, oops, these 3 ones. Then we get this extra one with the small details, right? And then we keep the sandstone, this one, as an individual one, because we need to till the texture a lot, because it's used for the walls, right, in the buildings. So big structures need to tile this texture up. So we keep it separately from the rest, and we keep one more separated, that is the wood, this wood. Okay, because we use it a lot on the buildings. So finally we get 1 charcoal, 1 matte for this one, the sandstone, 1 for the wood, and then we have 2 Atlas textures, Atlas 01 and Atlas 02. So finally this building have only 4 charcoals, right? 1, 2, 3, 4.
For a bunch of building.
For a very complex building. So this allow us to have a lot of possibilities, because we can make a complex atlas where we have multiple small props and stuff in the atlas, and we can use it for create variation on our scenes, right? If we build the assets very low poly, and we use this atlas, we finally only get like 4 charcoals, 5 charcoals, depending on the amount of the materials it finally ends to have, right? And if you process your meshes well, if you create your meshes well with low poly, that means you can put a lot of elements in. Instead of putting just a pot with a flower that have, I don't know, 5K, if you build from the scratch, maybe this is only, I don't know, 100 poly, right? So that means you can put like 50 times the same thing, right? So it's very powerful, and the iOS and the Android and low-end machines will love you because you only are casting 4 charcoals for the GPU instead of millions. And that process doesn't need to go through the Simplygon stage, and that means we don't need to destroy the textures, destroy the model surface or anything. It will look exactly like how it looks on the atlas, right? The texture will look very sharp and clear, like this one.
Oh, very good.
So it's very good approach, I believe.
Ultimately, we on Blender we assign the
Mhm.
UVs directly on every spot of the atlas, right?
Exactly. So when you go, good question. So when we go to when we send this texture to Blender, we assign the faces to the areas of the texture we want. Exactly. So um, if you want, for example, this face of your cube, just using the ceramic in the UVs, you will put the UV of the face right here, right? And if you want this other face, just use the stone wall. Same thing, you will put your UVs around this area.
Okay.
And that's all, yes, basically. This is how we map our building using that. And yes, this workflow I believe is very nice because we can have a very well organized, files, because it's not a destructive workflow. We can preserve all the editable files. By the end, we just have two editable files, right? We have the atlas and we have the sampler project. So it's only two files to keep track, and obviously the folder with the exports, like here. So it's very clear. So this can be called, I don't know, Oasis buildings, right? Atlas project. This one can be materials Oasis project. And then here inside you have your source files exported, source files of your source textures, and your final atlas. So it's very clear to keep that track. We can see that in a folder, and if everyone's used this workflow, everyone's can understand how the project of the other member team
Yeah.
show looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
It will look familiar for everyone. If you need like a texture, you can go to materials folder, you can go to the atlas, and you can select that texture. If you want to edit, you probably will go to the sampler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do any edit on the sampler, or if you want to adjust better the atlas, you go to the atlas file in Designer. So
Great.
it's a quite great way to work. Yeah. So that's all, I believe. If you have any questions, drop it.
No, it's fine.
All right. Went very well.